Aloha. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about for loops. For loops is one of my favorite loops. It's a little bit less dangerous than the loops I was showing you earlier with the while loops. You're not going to have to worry about infinite loops in here for the most part. So what are for loops? For loops are loops that allow you to iterate over container objects. So when we're talking about containers, we're talking about tuples, lists, strings, things of that nature. So you're going to iterate over each object or each element of the object. So let me show you an example of this. So let me share my screen. Let's pull this up. So we're going to start with lists. And we have a variable here defined as a list of Tesla, Prius, Bolt, and Rivian. Each one of these are strings. So the first time we go through here, we're going to assign the first element to car. And then we're going to do the second to then once we loop through, we're going to go and we're going to take Prius and we're going to put that into car. So each time we go through eCars right here, we're going to be taking element by element. We're going to be assigning it to car. So the first time we run this, we're going to say, okay, for car and eCars, it's our first time. We're going to take Tesla. So car is going to be equal to Tesla. We'll go down, we'll print car, which is Tesla, and we'll loop up. So now we're at the second element, which is Prius. So car is now equal to Prius. So we run with Prius as car, we print out Prius, and then we do the same thing for Bolt and Rivian. So as expected, if we hit run, we're going to get Tesla, Prius, Bolt, Rivian. So they're going to print out in order, one by one. So this is something that's useful if you want to do something on everything in a list. Let's say you had a list of numbers and you wanted to square every number in that list. You could use a for loop to go over it and square every single element in there. So this is just something convenient for when you want to iterate over an entire list of things. So we can also do this on tuples. So if we go over here and we uncomment our tuple example, we're going to start the same thing. We're going to have eCars as Tesla, Prius, Bolt, and Rivian. And when we go and we assign, when we run our loop here, the for loop, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our first element, put it into car, our second element, put it into car, third element into car, and fourth element. So on the first run through here, we should get Tesla printing out. Then the second time it's equal to Prius. So we'll get Prius printing out, then Bolt, and then Rivian. So let's take a look. It should look just like above. And sure enough, it prints out, and it prints out in the order that they were in the list or the tuple. So now we're going to take a look over at a dictionary. So iterating over a dictionary iterates over the keys of the dictionary, not the value. So be very careful when you're using this. Don't expect it to get the value for you. So in this, in a dictionary, we're going to take counting cars. So we're going to have 10 Teslas, 14 Priuses, 3 Bolts, and 1 Rivian. So we're going to go for count in car count. So it's going to take each one of these. But remember, count, it's not giving us the actual number here. It's giving us the key value here. So it's actually going to give us Tesla, Prius, Bolt, and Rivian. So we'll print out count, and then we're actually going to print out car count, which is the dictionary, and then we're going to grab the thing that's associated with the key that's in count. So what we should get here is for count, it should say Tesla. So you can see, first of all, that my variable is poorly named here. And then you're going to see that the car count of count is going to give us 10 for the first one. So let me clear the screen down here. And when I clear the screen, we'll see that indeed it was giving us that. So now, because this is a really poor way of using a variable, let's name it, as we always talk about, let's appropriately name it. Actually, let me undo that and show you a really neat feature in Visual Studio Code. So if we select count, and then we do, I think it's Command D in Mac, we can select multiple ones at once. But now I realize that it will also grab car count here, so that's not really what we want to do. But if you want to change several things at one time, you could just go ahead and click on Command D and select them all. And then at one time, you could just say like car, and it would change all of those to car, which is pretty cool. So I want to undo that. And I'm sorry to confuse you here, as I probably am doing, but we're going to change this to car. and we're going to change this to car, and over here, car, because that is what makes sense instead of saying count as I had before. So car count is going to be, so anyway, let's go through this again. Car count, we've got our cars with the count of the cars. So when we say for car and car count, we're taking Tesla, Prius, Bolt, and Rivian. And then we're going to print the car name, which is going to be Tesla or Prius or Bolt or Rivian. Then we're going to print the actual count. And we get the count by calling on our, here's the container name, the dictionary name, which is car count. And then the car is going to be equivalent to Tesla. So when we say, give us the one for Tesla in car count, and that's what it should give us, 10 right here. So when we run it, again, we see, even though we changed the name of the car, it didn't matter, it's the same thing. So we have Tesla printing as the car, and then the car count is going to be 10. And Prius is 14, Bolt 3, and Rivian 1. So I hope I didn't confuse you there trying to do one or two extra things. But anyway, let's take a look at strings. Strings are also iterable objects. So when we go over them letter by letter, and we go from left to right. So we're going to take the state motto, and we're going to initialize a variable here, output. We're going to make it equal to nothing. And then we're going to say for every letter in the state motto, for every single letter, and that's going to be the Okina as well. For every letter in there, we're going to say output, which is our empty string right here. It's going to be equal to itself plus an underscore, and it's going to add letter to it. So as we're going through here, it's taking each and every single letter. So it'll take the U, the A, the space, the M, the A, the U, and it's going to basically put an underscore in between each and every one of those. And then it'll print that out at the end. You know, the whole thing with the underscore. So let's go ahead and hit play. And sure enough, you see the entire thing with underscores in there. And look at the first one. Notice that we have an underscore beginning the whole thing. Why is that? Because in the beginning, output is nothing. So we're going to be adding underscore U. And then the second time we go through there, we're taking the A for letter, and we're going to say output, which right now is just that U. It's going to be the underscore U. It's going to be underscore U. And then we're going to add that letter A, and we're going to add the underscore right before it. So we should have underscore U, underscore A. And it builds up the entire text, but putting that underscore in between. And notice here, in between the words, that space is showing up as well, as we expected. So let's go ahead and comment this out, and we're going to go down. So you can use the for loop to do something for each element in the list. For example, using the dictionary above, we can total all the cars. So let's go ahead and take a look at that example. And we're going to start with car count, same as above. We're going to take 10 Teslas, 14 Priuses, 3 Bolts, and 1 Rivian, and we're going to do a count on it. So we're going to go through each one, and we're going to sum each one of these just to see how many cars we have in total. So what's going to happen is, as we go through this, we're going to say count in cars. So count, again, this is, as I mentioned before, a horrible way of naming them, and I apologize for that. So we'll just go back over here and change that. So for car and car count, total is that, and yeah, that looks right. So each time we go through here, we're going to say for car and cars, so we're going to say Tesla, Prius, Bolt, and Rivian. So we're going to take each value in turn. Then the total count is going to be equal to the car count, which is right here. It's going to be that for the Tesla, then the Prius, then the Bolt, then the Rivian. So it'll take the corresponding value, which is the 10, the 14, the 3, and the 1, and it'll add that to our total count, which we're initializing here at 0. So at the end of this, after it loops through everything, it's going to come over here and it's going to print out the total for us. So let's take a look at that. Let's clear out our screen down below by typing in clear. Then I'll just hit the play button, and it tells us that the total number, the total count of cars is 28. And if you look at that and you eyeball it, that's 24, 27, 28. So it's doing exactly what we expect it to. So you can use this for summation of elements, our values in a dictionary is one way you can use it. But you can probably think of many other things you'll want to do. As you build projects, you'll have plenty of uses for this. And this is something that I use quite often, actually. So sometimes we need to traverse a list backwards, and there's an easy way to do that, and we use the reversed function. So it's just reversed with the what do you call it, the parentheses. So it doesn't exactly create a list, but a different type of object. So we're going to take a look at below here. So I'm going to undo or I'll basically take these two, and we're going to print out the list that we're creating. So there's no surprise here, just prints out our list. Well, then we're going to go ahead and I want to print out the ID of this. What does our ID for this object look like? So it gives us a long object. We're not going to remember it, just remember the 608. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to unreverse this. So what we're doing here is we're going to take eCars, this list that we just had, and we're going to reverse it. And I want to check out the ID and see if it's the same as before. So when we check it out, we've got a 416 and a 280. So these are not the same thing. So it's they're not giving us the same thing here. So let's undo and let's take a look at the ID of eCars after we've done a reverse of this and see if it comes out to the same thing. And sure enough, 688, 616, 688. So what's happened is when we come through here and we take a look at eCars, it gives us a certain number, different ID number. We reverse it, and this it comes back the same. When we try to print eCars after that, we're still looking at the same ID, and you can probably figure out why that is. So let's take a look at the type for the reversed. I had been thinking originally, before actually studying this, that the reversed of eCars was going to give us just another list, but it's actually not. It's a different type of object altogether. It's a class called list reverse iterator. So we can take that and we can use that to reverse iterate through a list. So if we click print here, what we're going to see is we've got essentially eCars is not changed. It's still the same, even if we try reversing it. So let's go ahead and we'll actually leave that first one in. Let's go ahead and silence these two right here, or these three. And let's print that again. And we're going to see that we've got a reverse iterator. We've got Rivian, Bolt, Prius, and Tesla, which is the exact opposite of the order that we had above. So let's go ahead and say eCars equals reverse of eCars and see what, let's undo the next one as well. So what does that give us? So when we look at it, we see that indeed, if we try to assign eCars to the reversed of eCars, we're going to get a list reverse iterator object. We're not going to get what you might have expected, which is a list that's just reversed. So keep that in mind. You can use the reversed for in-place reverse iterating, but you're not actually reversing the list as an object. So keep that in mind. Just use reverse when you're doing a reverse loop through the structure. So that's useful if let's say you've got a bunch of numbers and you want to go up or down. If you had like 1 through 10 here, and you wanted to instead go the opposite direction, you could just say reversed of the numbers or whatever it is you're using as a name. You can just say, for car in reversed of it, and it'll go in the opposite direction. But don't use that to try to reverse your string and hold on to that reversed list later. It's not going to work. So anyways, I hope that hasn't been too confusing. If you have any questions on this, if my explanation has been a little bit muddy, absolutely feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to explain it a little bit better. But there are other ways of getting a reverse list, but this reversed is only for use in when you're doing a reverse iteration through an object. So keep that in mind. And anyways, we will continue on into the next lesson.